Hello and welcome to Talk Ag to Me, the podcast dedicated to improving ag literacy around the globe. I'm your host, Brandon Black, and today's episode is going to be a little bit of a different one. It's a little bit of a shorter episode, and mostly I just want to go over the updates that are going to be going along with the podcast as far as where we're going to go from here, what plans I have for the future, and where else you guys can find the podcast, and I'll get to that in just a second. I have had to take a little bit of a break from the podcast recently because, life gets in the way, things get busy, it's hard for me to find guests half the time, and that kind of brings up the next point I was going to go to, which is I need more guests, which I could get some easily, and I have been trying, but as we get closer to harvest seasons, people get busier. The fall season is kind of a crazy time of year in general for a lot of farmers and people around the ag industry, which is what kind of led me to the idea of having more consumer-based interviews for an extended period of time. And I'm still going to do farmer interviews and teachers and politicians and all those types of interviews that we usually do, but I'd also like to have more consumer conversations, get the questions that consumers need to know about agriculture that they're curious about, ask them questions of consumers themselves in terms of what they think about certain things that are going on in the ag industry right now, and just kind of see if I can bridge that gap a little bit more effectively between consumer and producer, which is ultimately the goal of this podcast at the end of the day. And the more I look at it, the less consumers we've had on this podcast than I would have preferred. So that's going to be kind of the main focus over the next few weeks, is trying to get more consumer-based episodes out. And don't worry, we'll definitely be focusing on, getting more interviews from farmers and other famous people in the ag industry as well. But that's just going to have to kind of take a back seat over time because it's going to be harder to get those interviews out at a consistent basis like I would like them to be. So that's kind of the other thing is, if you guys know anybody who doesn't know a whole lot about agriculture and wants to learn more, if you are someone who doesn't know much about agriculture and want to learn more, feel free to reach out and suggest, people that I should interview. Get in contact with me through Facebook's, Instagram, Twitter. Any of the social media pages, comments on YouTube. I check them all. If you would like to have, a civil conversation, have, actual good questions. And for consumers, I don't really consider any question a bad question because it's all about, at the end of the day, trying to raise their awareness about the ag industry and where their food comes from. So that's kind of my call to action right now, is I need more people to kind of step up to the plate and want to have these kinds of conversations, because that's the most important part of fixing the issue of ag illiteracy, is having those conversations in the first place. We can have episodes as much as we want around here talking about all the issues facing the ag industry and basically standing in a big old echo chamber about how great agriculture is, but until we have those conversations with the people who actually need to be hearing them, we're not really getting our job done. So that's kind of what I want all of you to focus on over the next few weeks, is trying to get more consumers out and talking to them and having conversations with them. And even if it's not about the podcast, just in general, talk to more people about where their food comes from. And obviously don't be obnoxious about it. I wouldn't recommend just running into a grocery store and yelling at random strangers, but if you could just pull someone, that or maybe a nice looking stranger off the side of the street and just talk to them like, hey, would you happen to know what's in that donut you're eating? Or would you happen to know where your milk comes from? Or, just kind of a casual conversation. And there are actual casual conversation starters on various websites where you can use to have these engaging conversations without them being too awkward or weird or strange, because I know how difficult it can be to just talk to random strangers on the side of the street. Not everyone is as curious as I am, I guess is one way to put it. But that's something that I want all of us to start working on more actively, is just really getting out and having that conversation, getting more people aware of what's going on in the ag industry, and just really just getting more knowledge on what people are aware of, what they aren't aware of, what they're scared of, where their concerns are, where their priorities are, and what they want to learn. Because I've learned over time that consumers, they do want to learn, even if they don't know it yet. If you introduce them to something relating to the ag industry that they'd never seen before, their eyes light up. They're open to new opportunities and possibilities as to how exactly their food is made that they never even thought was possible before. A lot of consumers may seem closed-minded at first, but once you kind of shove your foot in their door and you open it up a little bit, they seem very interested in the conversation. You just have to kind of take that first step and initialize it in order to get them interested in talking to you at all. So that would be my advice as of right now, is just really focus on those consumer conversations, because that's what we've kind of been lacking here on the podcast, and that's kind of one of the things I wanted to hit on mostly was having more consumer conversations than we actually do. So look forward to that over the next few weeks as I try to get more consumers here on the podcast and kind of see, pick their brains about what's going on in on their side of the fence, I guess you could say. But another exciting aspect of the podcast that I'm looking forward to is that I recently finally figured out how to get the podcast on iTunes, on Spotify, on all these different platforms where you guys can listen to them a lot more conveniently and easily, and they'll be ready to you basically whenever. There is a bit of a catch with this, though. In order to get these episodes out on these other platforms, I'm basically restarting the podcast in terms of starting with no subscribers, no listeners, no viewers, no nothing, and having to build my way back up. Because of this, I can't exactly load up all of my old episodes onto the platforms at once because I might overload the system. In terms of my analytics, it's just not going to look good if I have a lot of content that nobody's listening to. So I'm going to be re-uploading every episode of Talk Ag to Me from episode 1 all the way up to our most recent episode with Temple Grandin. And in order to do this in a timely manner so I'm not just posting episodes all over again for the next year, Abby actually had a pretty good idea on how to do this effectively. So I'm just going to go through, I'm going to post episodes, episode 1, episode 2. I'm going to be posting 2 episodes a week, one on Mondays, one on Wednesdays, up until the point where we're caught up. And the difference is we're not going to be posting them in numerical order like we were before. Now we're going to mix it up a little bit. Like, let's say we have an episode about GMOs, and we have a general conversation episode where Evan, Abby, and I talk about GMOs, and we actually have an episode where we interview somebody who is a professional geneticist or a scientist that works with GMOs. We're going to post the GMO general episode on Monday and the professional interview on Wednesday. So we're trying to keep all the episodes like kind of coupled together in terms of theme. And the only downside to that is the quality difference is going to be kind of substantial because we were going through some changes in scenery in terms of where we were recording. We're going through some changes in equipment and some changes just in really our personal style of interview. So it's going to be a little bit different to listen to rather than when we first went through them. But I thought that'd be a little bit more exciting than you guys just having to go through every episode over and over and over again, just trying to build up the viewership and the following. And I was worried I was going to lose a lot of you by trying to just post them 1 week at a time and just have you listen to all of them all over again. So I think this is kind of a new and fun and dynamic way we can kind of catch your guys' attention and say like, hey, remember these episodes from back in the day? Well, you can listen to them all over again while we're getting the new ones ready to go. And like I said, we're still going to be doing new episodes. We're going to be posting them at the same consistent basis. We're going to be posting old episodes at the same time, so the new episodes might slow down a little bit. That way I have more time to catch up and get newer episodes out with higher quality rather than just me rushing through and trying to get episodes out for you guys. I think you guys might appreciate that more than consistency. So that being said, the podcast is currently submitted to all these different platforms to be analyzed and then possibly confirmed to be posted on the websites, which I seriously doubt they're going to reject us. It's pretty rare that you get rejected by these things, but because I have to go through the whole process, it may be a couple weeks before the first episode is actually out on any of these platforms. I'll be updating you guys, so make sure you're checking in on social media and paying attention to what's going on, but just know that they're on the way. I just really can't tell you when they'll be available yet. But once the first one's out there, then the rest of them will kind of just start coming, like I said, twice a week, and you guys can view them and listen to them and share them and get people who haven't heard them before to listen to them. I know it's a lot easier to listen to them on iPhone or on iTunes or on Spotify or whatever the case may be, rather than having to look them up on YouTube every week and go on Facebook to see if I posted the link that week. You can just check on your phone, and usually they'll send you updates if I have new episodes coming out. So I really hope you guys are as psyched for this as I am. It's something that I've been trying to work on since we started the podcast a year and a half ago, which is crazy to think about. But I think that this could be kind of a big step for Talk Ag to Me as a whole. The whole moving into the more consumer-driven episodes and getting the podcast on new platforms and having the interview with Temple Grandin. I mean, there's so much going on at the podcast I never really thought was going to be possible, just because, I started it with 2 of my friends in a classroom with, a cheapy old Meteor mic, and it was just something fun that we could do because we were learning a lot about ag through our classes and through our speaking teams, and we wanted somewhere where we could just kind of really just vent, just get all the information that we were loading our brains with out there, and it became something so much bigger than I ever thought it could. And I appreciate every single one of you for all the support you guys give, for all of the interest you guys have shown, for all of the suggestions and ideas, and just the general community feel that I've kind of gotten from this. And I know that we're still pretty small here. I mean, we don't have the most subscribers, the most listeners, the most views, but that's okay. I think that over time we're going to build that, and it's something that is just, ag podcasts are pretty hard to build a strong following for, just because ag itself is so new to media, and a lot of people who are huge into media aren't necessarily huge into ag. So that's where I need your guys' help, though. I need you guys to share this wherever you can, to get the word out there, to start your own podcast, have your own conversations, use media to your advantage to spread the word of agriculture. And I've said before that I don't really care if somebody's doing a podcast like mine and they're doing it better than me. This isn't a competition. This is a collaboration. I need help. I need you guys to go out there and do what I'm doing too. Go spread the word. Go have those conversations. Go share what you've learned from me, from your own classes, from the internet, from your friends, your family, your community. Go and share what you know. And if there's anything you don't know that you'd like to learn more about, that's what we're here for. Come and ask us. And if we don't know, we'll find someone that can tell you. I mean, we have a pretty wide pool of knowledge available at our fingertips. So, yeah, just, I'd like to thank all you guys once again for all of your support, all of your, love and suggestions and ideas, and just like great feedback I've gotten on this thing. I know it's only been a year and a half, and I know that we're still pretty small, but I've just been so proud of how far we've come, and I've just been so excited to see where it goes next. So I think that this next step is going to be a big one. I hope that it means a lot for what goes on in the podcast future, and I hope all of you come along with me in this journey as we kind of move through here. So that being said, that's all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and once again for all of your support. Hope to see you guys next week for our first consumer episode, hopefully. And don't forget, if you ate today, thank a farmer.